Ava hadn't spoken more than 5 words in weeks, until the thunder rolled and she said, "Mom, there's a dog crying." Rain battered the tiny fog-shrouded house on the edge of town, rattling the windows like impatient fingers. Inside, Claire paced with a mug of tea going cold in her hands, glancing again and again at her daughter curled up on the couch. Ava's dark hair stuck to her cheeks, and her eyes flicked toward the window every time lightning splintered the sky. It had been 2 months since Michael, Claire's husband, Ava's dad, hadn't come home from his construction site. 2 months of casseroles left on their doorstep. 2 months of well-meaning neighbors who didn't know what to say. 2 months of Ava turning silent, her words dried up and her gaze always far away, the storm raged, thunder rolling low. Claire shut off the TV. The quiet felt heavier than the storm. That's when Ava spoke, voice trembling but clear. "Mom, there's a dog crying." Claire blinked. "Sweetheart, it's just the wind." "No," Ava insisted, sitting up, eyes wide. "He's out there. He's hurt." Claire started to answer, but the words caught in her throat. Ava hadn't spoken like this, hadn't cared about anything since Michael. Something flickered in Claire's chest. She set down her mug and pulled on her rain jacket. "Okay, show me," she said softly. Ava led Claire out the door, bare feet slapping the wet porch boards. The rain soaked through Claire's hair, but she barely felt it as they crept along the edge of the overgrown yard, past the old fence. Ava pointed toward the abandoned train tracks, half hidden by blackberry brambles and trash. Claire shivered, not just from the cold. She glanced back at the house, considering turning back, until Ava took her hand, squeezing hard. They pushed through the weeds and thorns, the metallic smell of wet rails in the air. At the end of the tracks, near the freight yard, a thin, desperate sound cut through the storm, a whimper, broken and raw. Claire froze. "Ava, stay close." Just then, a beam of light swept over them from the direction of the freight yard. Claire tensed. She'd heard stories about the yard, about people who passed through at night. She was about to pull Ava back when a shape moved in the shadows. Large, hunched, shaking. Ava broke free from her grip, running toward the shape. "It's okay," she called softly, voice trembling. "Wait," Claire hissed. But her daughter was already beside the animal. As Claire drew closer, she saw the truth. A German shepherd, matted with mud and blood, a heavy chain digging into his neck. His ribs stuck out, his ears laid flat. He whimpered, trying to pull away, but the chain was looped around a railroad spike, hammered deep into the gravel. Claire's heart pounded. She reached for her phone, hands slick with rain. "We need help." But Ava was already kneeling, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "Don't be scared," she whispered, reaching out. The dog's eyes flicked up, gold and desperate. His tail thumped weakly, footsteps splashed through the puddles behind them. Claire whirled around, nearly screaming, until she recognized the figure approaching, broad-shouldered and steady, flashlight swinging from his hand. "Joel!" Claire exhaled, relief and fear tangled together. Joel was an old friend, her late husband's closest buddy. He'd been in the army, quiet and careful, always showing up when you least expected him but most needed him. Joel took in the scene in a glance. He crouched beside the dog, examining the chain. "Someone did this on purpose," he said, voice flat. He turned the beam on the wounds. Raw, fresh, ugly. Claire swallowed. Can you get him loose?" Joel's eyes flicked to the dog, then to Ava, then back to Claire. "Maybe. But we need to be fast. There's a freight coming. Hear that?" In the distance, a train's horn cut through the night. Joel pulled a multi-tool from his jacket, fingers moving with practiced calm. "Ava, keep talking to him. Claire, keep watch." Ava stroked the shepherd's nose, whispering nonsense. Claire stood, heart hammering, scanning the darkness. The train's light grew closer, way too close. "Joel, hurry!" she shouted over the rumble. "Almost. Got it." Joel grunted, twisting the chain. The last link popped free with a metallic snap. The shepherd staggered, then collapsed into Ava's lap, tongue lolling. Ava clung to him, murmuring, "You're safe. You're safe now." The train barreled by, horn blaring, wind whipping their hair and clothes. For a moment, Claire thought they wouldn't make it, that the train would sweep them all away. But Joel scooped up the shepherd, and together they half carried, half dragged him back to the shelter of the trees, as the train rattled into the distance. Claire exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. Ava looked up at her, clutching the shepherd tight. "Can we keep him?" she whispered, hope breaking through for the first time in weeks. Claire knelt, pressing her forehead to Ava's. Let's get him home first. We'll figure everything out. But as they hurried through the rain, the dog's weight heavy in Joel's arms, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that saving him was just the beginning, and that their quiet life had changed forever in the storm. The house felt smaller, warmer, and more alive that night. The storm rattling every window, as if to remind them that outside the world was wild and unpredictable. Claire dragged in a pile of old towels and laid them in the laundry room, Joel right behind her, still carrying the battered German shepherd. Ava hovered at his heels, eyes glued to the dog, her voice a soft murmur of encouragement. You're okay. You're safe here. We got you. Claire barely recognized her daughter's voice. There was life in it again, trembling and new. Joel laid the shepherd down as gently as he could. Blood smeared the towels, the dog's chest heaving with every breath. Claire knelt beside him, her hands shaking as she fumbled for the pet first aid kit. The dog's fur was sticky, tangled with leaves, his eyes glazed but not wild. He looked at Ava, then at Claire, as if he could sense their uncertainty and pain. He needs stitches, Joel said quietly, glancing at the gash on the shepherd's side. And food? Water? Claire's breath hitched, guilt flaring. She should have called a vet, but it was nearly midnight, and the nearest animal hospital was miles away. I'll get what I can, she said, forcing herself to move. Joel was already pulling a bottle of antiseptic and a pack of gauze from the kit. Ava held the dog's big head in her lap, stroking behind his ears. What's his name? She asked. Joel looked up, wiping blood from his hands. He's got a tag. He squinted, holding the grimy collar up to the light. Bruno. Ava smiled, her fingers tracing the letters. Bruno. Hey, Bruno. Claire blinked back tears. It had been so long since Ava smiled. Joel worked in silence, cleaning and bandaging Bruno's wounds. The dog flinched, but never growled or snapped. He simply watched Ava, as if he decided she was his anchor in the chaos. When Joel finished, Bruno shuddered, then let out a long, low sigh, curling himself protectively around Ava's legs. Claire cleaned up as best she could, every muscle aching with worry. Joel, what do we do now? She whispered. Joel shook his head. We let him rest. In the morning, we'll figure it out. Ava slept in the laundry room that night, curled up on a blanket next to Bruno. Claire sat just outside the door, watching them through the ignas, unable to sleep. Joel stayed on the couch, eyes open, scanning the windows as if expecting trouble. The next morning, sunlight cut through the storm clouds, painting the kitchen golden. Claire made coffee, her hands moving automatically, glancing at the clock every few minutes. When Ava patted in, her hair tangled and her eyes brighter than they'd been in weeks, Claire nearly dropped her mug. He's thirsty, Ava announced, and hungry. Claire nodded. Let's see what we can find. Bruno limped after Ava into the kitchen, his tail thumping the wall. Joel watched, a quiet smile on his lips. He reached out, letting Bruno sniff his hand, and the shepherd's ears perked. You're a tough one, Joel murmured. As Bruno lapped water from a bowl, Joel sat down at the table, his eyes fixed on the battered collar and dog tag. This isn't just any stray, he said quietly. Military issue tag. I've seen these before. Claire stiffened. You think he's dangerous? Joel shook his head. No, I think he's special. He reached into his jacket, pulling out his phone and a battered photo, a grainy shot of himself, years younger, standing with a unit of handlers and their dogs. I used to train shepherds like him for a private contractor, Voss Defense Solutions, most of them never left the program. If Bruno's here, something went wrong. Claire's breath caught. You mean he escaped? Joel hesitated, then nodded. Or someone tried to get rid of him? Ava knelt beside Bruno, her fingers twining through his fur. Who would hurt a dog like him? Joel's jaw tightened. People who see them as property, not lives. Claire looked at Bruno, at his scars and haunted eyes, and felt a chill run through her. Why would he be chained out there? Left to die? Joel's voice was low. Sometimes, if a dog fails in training, refuses an order, especially a dangerous one, they're dealt with. If Bruno's wounds, the chain, the place they left him, it's a message. Someone wanted him gone. Ava pressed her face into Bruno's neck, whispering. Bruno's tail wagged, slow and steady. Joel continued, I need to know more. There's a guy I used to know. Worked for Voss. He owes me a favor. But if this is what I think it is, Claire, we can't let anyone know Bruno's here. Not yet. Claire nodded, fear pricking at her skin. Is he safe with us? Joel looked at Ava, then at Claire. He'll protect her. I'd bet my life on it. The days blurred together. Bruno healed slowly, always sticking to Ava's side like a shadow. The first night he slept at her feet, Ava whispered to him in the dark. You're not broken, she told him. You're home. Joel spent his days on the phone, tracking down rumors. Voss lost a shepherd a few weeks back. Classified project, he told Claire one evening, voice low. The dog refused to attack a civilian during a demonstration. The handler tried to intervene. It got fired. The dog vanished. Name matches, Bruno. Claire frowned. They'd really do that? Just throw him away? Joel's eyes darkened. To men like Carter Voss, everything has a price. Dogs, people, it's all the same. Claire shivered, hugging herself. Later, as dusk settled, Ava and Bruno sat in the yard, the grass wet from rain. Ava giggled for the first time in ages, throwing a stick for Bruno. He chased it, not fast, but determined, coming back every time. The look in his eyes was different. Hopeful, eager. Claire watched from the window, her chest aching. She knew it couldn't last, not with the world closing in. But for now, for this one fragile moment, Ava had her voice back. And Bruno had his chance at a new life. And somewhere, Claire sensed, trouble was coming. But for tonight, the storm had passed, and the house was full of something she thought she'd lost forever. Hope. Morning light crept into the living room, scattering gold across the tangled blankets where Ava and Bruno slept side by side. Claire leaned against the doorway, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, one hand resting on the shepherd's neck. There was a calmness there, a steady peace Claire hadn't seen since Michael's death. Joel, already up and brewing strong coffee, and glanced at Claire with a knowing look. He spoke quietly. You see it, don't you? She's starting to come back. Claire nodded, voice thick. It's like he's the only thing that reaches her. Joel smiled, soft and a little sad. Sometimes it takes something broken to heal something else that's broken. Bruno opened his eyes, tail thumping gently as if agreeing. Ava stirred, mumbling, then sat up, rubbing her eyes. For the first time in ages, she yawned and smiled. Morning, Mom? Claire blinked, nearly missing it. Good morning, sweetheart. Bruno stretched and limped to the kitchen, where Joel knelt to check his wounds. Ava followed, careful and attentive. She filled his water bowl, then picked through the fridge for leftovers, fussing over Bruno as if he were made of glass. Bruno nuzzled her in thanks. That afternoon, Claire tried calling the nearest animal rescue, but the lines were down. Last night's storm had knocked out phone and internet for half the town. Joel left to pick up supplies, warning Claire not to answer the door for anyone she didn't know. Alone with her daughter, Claire hesitated. Ava, can I ask you something? Ava looked up, still brushing Bruno's coat with an old hairbrush. Yeah? How did you know about the dog last night? Ava shrugged, face scrunched with concentration. I heard him, not just with my ears. It's like I felt it, like he was calling me in my heart. Claire knelt down, studying Ava's face. You felt him? Ava nodded. When I touched him, I saw things, not like dreams, like memories, scary men in black coats, yelling. He didn't want to hurt anybody. He just wanted to be good. But that I heard him when he wouldn't bite a lady. Yet he was scared. Claire's breath caught. Sweetheart, that's very specific. Ava looked up, brown eyes unwavering. He trusts us, Mom. He trusts me. Bruno pressed his nose to Ava's palm, sighing, as if the truth of it settled between them. Claire watched, torn between wonder and fear. That evening, Joel returned with supplies. Dog food, bandages, a burner phone, and groceries. He sat with Claire at the kitchen table, voice low. I heard from my friend, Jake. He used to run security at Voss's main site. He confirmed it. Bruno was part of their K9 unit. But there's more. Voss runs a side project, Project Empath, experimental training, testing dogs' ability to track and respond to human emotions. They pair dogs with sensitive people, sometimes kids. Claire stiffened. What kind of project uses children? Joel looked grim. The kind run by men who see everything as a tool. Rumor is Bruno was a star until he malfunctioned. refused to attack a civilian target. That's when they got rid of him. Ava hovered in the doorway, listening, her face pale. Bruno whined, his ears flattening. Joel glanced at the dog, then at Ava, frowning. Do you think... Claire began, but Joel shook his head. I don't know. But Bruno's not like any dog I've seen. And your daughter? Claire, I've seen kids with a gift for animals. But this is something else. Ava stepped forward, voice quiet. He talks to me, not with words, but with pictures, feelings. Joel knelt in front of her, his gruffness melting. What does he want now, Ava? She thought for a moment. He wants to stay. He's scared someone will come for him, but he thinks we're safe. As long as we're together. Claire shivered. Are we? Joel stood, scanning the windows. I hope so. The next few days, Bruno's wounds began to heal. He grew stronger, limping less, his appetite returning. He followed Ava everywhere, outside to the porch, down the yard to the creek, even to the foot of her bed at night. Ava's voice became more confident, her laughter filling the house again. But strange things started to happen, too. The first night, as Claire dozed on the couch, she woke to the sound of Bruno barking, low and warning at the back door. When she looked, nothing was there, just the moonlight on the wet grass. In the morning, she found a muddy footprint on the porch, too big for Ava. Joel upped his patrols, sometimes sitting in his truck at the end of the street, watching for unfamiliar cars. He taught Ava how to spot a tail, how to hide if someone came. Just in case, he told her, you're part of the team now. But Ava didn't seem afraid. If anything, she was more alert, almost eerily aware of her surroundings. Once, as they walked the trails behind the house, Ava suddenly stopped, her eyes distant. We shouldn't go that way, she said, tugging Claire's hand. There's something bad up there. Joel checked the path ahead. Sure enough, he found a fresh set of tire tracks and a crumpled cigarette pack. Still warm. How did you know? He asked Ava. Ava just shrugged. Bruno told me. Joel knelt, looking Bruno in the eye. You're some dog. You know that? Bruno licked his hand, tail wagging as if accepting the compliment. Later, as dusk fell, Ava sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing. Bruno lay beside her, head on her feet. Claire watched the two of them. A mixture of relief and unease blooming in her chest. She remembered Michael's words months ago, before everything fell apart. Sometimes you just need one good thing to hold on to. The rest will come. Maybe Bruno was that good thing. That night, as rain pattered the roof, Ava whispered to her mother, He's not just a dog, Mom. He's my friend. And I'm his person now. We belong together. Claire hugged her tight, tears stinging her eyes. Not from sadness, but from something like hope. But somewhere out there, in the shadows, the world was waking up to the fact that Bruno was gone. And the closer he got to healing, the closer trouble would come. For now, though, there was peace in the house. A fragile, precious peace, born from the bond between a girl and her dog. Both survivors, both lost and found. Night crept across the quiet street, moonlight spilling through trembling branches and splattering across the kitchen floor. Claire had double-checked every lock, set up makeshift barricades, furniture braced against doors, sticks jammed in window tracks, while Joel did one last sweep outside, flashlight beam dancing across bushes and shadowed corners. Inside, the air felt taut, like the moments before a storm. Ava sat at the kitchen table with Bruno, her hand resting on his thick neck. She seemed calm, more than Claire felt anyway, her face soft and resolute. Bruno's ears perked at every sound. Joel slipped in through the back, his eyes dark and wary. No sign of anybody. But I don't like this. There's a car parked 2 blocks down. Out-of-state plates. Been there since dusk. Claire's stomach twisted. Should we leave now? Joel shook his head. Too risky in the dark. We stay put. If anything happens, we use the cellar. I showed you the way, remember? Claire nodded. The root cellar door, hidden under the loose floorboard in the laundry room, led to a tunnel that opened at the edge of the woods. Michael and Joel had built it years ago for emergencies that, back then, felt like the stuff of wild imagination. Now, it was their lifeline. Around midnight, the house fell silent. Even the crickets outside had gone quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the refrigerator. Claire was halfway through dozing on the couch, her phone clutched in her hand, when she heard it. A gentle tap at the back door. She jolted upright. Bruno's head snapped up, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Ava reached out, whispering, "It's okay. I'm here." Joel materialized from the hallway, a baseball bat gripped in one hand, his old army side showing through the set of his jaw. The tapping came again, firmer. Claire edged to the laundry room, watching from the shadows as Joel pressed his back to the wall. A voice, muffled but sharp, came through the door. "Open up. Company property is inside. We don't want trouble." Claire's heart hammered. "Company property?" She glanced at Bruno, whose hackles bristled. Ava pressed herself against him, silent and unafraid. Joel signaled for everyone to stay down. He leaned close to Claire, whispering, "We're not opening that door. If they try to break in, we head for the cellar. No question. No hesitations." A sudden, violent pounding rattled the back door. A window shattered somewhere in the house. Shards of glass crashed onto the linoleum. "Go," Joel hissed, shoving Claire and Ava toward the laundry room. "Now!" Claire grabbed Ava's hand, and Ava called softly to Bruno, who stuck to her like a shadow. Joel followed, batting away a hand that reached in through the broken window. "I see you," a harsh voice barked. "Give us the shepherd. No one gets hurt." They scrambled into the laundry room. Claire yanked up the loose floorboard, revealing the dark, musty hole beneath. Ava dropped in first, Bruno right behind her. Claire squeezed in, heart thundering, and Joel sealed the hatch, plunging them into darkness. Above them, heavy boots stomped across the kitchen floor, angry voices yelling orders, the sharp bark of a walkie-talkie. The sound of furniture smashing, drawers yanked open, doors kicked in. Ava huddled close to Bruno, burying her face in his fur. Claire wrapped her arms around her daughter, struggling to stay calm. Joel whispered, "Move fast, but quiet." He led the way, crawling through the narrow dirt tunnel, flashlight low. Roots brushed their heads, the air cool and close. Ava moved fearlessly, one hand always on Bruno's back. Behind them, the house erupted in chaos. One of the men shouted, "Check the basement! They're here somewhere!" The tunnel sloped upward, ending at a rusty metal hatch. Joel cracked it open, peering out into the moonlit woods. He waved them forward, and together they tumbled out into the thick grass, breathless and shaken. The woods swallowed them in darkness. Joel led the way, guiding them through tangles of brambles and trees, away from the house, away from the men. Ava followed without a word, Bruno sticking so close she could feel his warm breath. After what felt like hours, Joel slowed and pointed. "There. See that light? My cabin will be safe there, at least for the night." The cabin was barely more than a hunting shack, tucked deep in the hills, hidden, fortified, and stocked for emergencies. Joel unlocked the door, ushering everyone inside. Claire collapsed onto a battered sofa, chest heaving. Ava knelt beside Bruno, checking his bandages. He licked her face in thanks. Joel pulled the curtains tight, double-checked the locks, and set up a makeshift barricade against the door. "They won't find us tonight. They will keep looking. Claire, you okay?" She nodded shakily. "Thank you. You saved us." Joel shrugged. "You and Ava saved me. Once. Now we're even." Claire managed a weak laugh. Ava sat quietly, her hand still on Bruno, her voice a soft whisper. "He says they're still looking. But he's not afraid?" Bruno pressed against Ava's side, his body trembling but resolute. As dawn crept over the horizon, Joel checked the perimeter. No signs of pursuit, at least, not yet. Claire made a pot of instant coffee, hands trembling less than before. Ava dozed on the floor, Bruno curled tight around her like a living shield. Joel sat beside Claire at the kitchen table. They called him company property. They want him back. They'll stop at nothing. Claire rubbed her face. "Why? He's just a dog." Joel shook his head. "Not just a dog. He's proof. Proof that Voss's experiment didn't work, that a dog with a conscience is more powerful than anything they can build. And now that he's bonded with Ava, that scares them even more." Claire looked at Ava, sleeping peacefully. "We can't let them have him." Joel nodded. We won't." Suddenly, Ava stirred, sitting up, her eyes bright in the early light. She looked at Bruno, then at Joel, and Claire. "We're safe, for now," she said. "But we have to keep moving. They're coming." Joel smiled grimly. "Then we'll be ready." Outside, the sun rose, burning the night's fear away. But the danger hadn't passed, only shifted, grown sharper. And as the family huddled together, sheltering a wounded dog with a secret worth killing for, Claire understood. Their fight had only just begun. Joel's mountain cabin was a world apart, just a humble square of wood and stone perched on the edge of endless pine forest, invisible from the winding road below. They had arrived before sunrise, every bone aching with adrenaline, but somehow the air up here felt clearer, as if the danger might dissolve among the trees. Inside, the place was simple but sturdy. Cast iron stove, patched leather chairs, faded photographs of Joel's younger days, pinned up alongside shelves of camping gear and old ration packs. It wasn't much, but for Claire and Ava it felt like a fortress. Ava hardly left Bruno's side. She slept curled against him on an old quilt, head pillowed on his chest, Bruno's breath slow and even beneath her ear. Sometimes she'd whisper, sometimes she'd just sit with him, their stillness more intimate than words. Claire watched, a pang of gratitude and something deeper, something close to awe, catching in her throat. By day, Ava was transformed. She laughed as she brushed Bruno's thick coat, careful around the healing wound. "You need a spa day, mister," she'd joke, plucking burrs and pine needles from his fur. Bruno responded with patient, almost human tolerance, letting Ava fuss over him, licking her cheek with gentle appreciation. Joel watched the two of them, shaking his head. "I've never seen a bond like that, not even with the best handlers." Claire sipped her coffee, eyes never leaving her daughter. "It's more than a bond, Joel. It's like they're connected. She knows things. She's not just, guessing." Joel nodded, his gaze serious. "You saw what happened in the woods. She led us right. She knew the way, even in the dark. That wasn't luck." The next day, Joel set to work reinforcing the cabin's defenses, looked at checking window locks, rigging a second door bolt, even setting up motion sensors he'd scavenged from old military kits. Claire helped where she could, but her mind kept drifting to Ava. She found her daughter on the porch, sitting cross-legged in the late afternoon sun. Bruno stretched out beside her like a furry guardian. Ava's hand was on Bruno's neck, eyes closed. "Ava?" Claire sat down next to her, careful not to intrude. Ava opened her eyes, blinking in the light. "He says he feels better here, not so scared." Claire tried not to show her surprise. "You can feel what he feels," Ava shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. "It's like, not pictures and feelings, not words. Sometimes I know where he hurts or what he wants." Bruno licked Ava's hand, tail thumping, as if to agree. Claire reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind Ava's ear. "You're brave, honey." Ava shook her head. "Bruno's the brave one. He keeps me safe. When I'm with him, I'm not scared anymore either." That night, Joel sat on the front steps, eyes scanning the moonlit woods, a rifle across his lap. Claire sat nearby, both of them silent for a long time. Finally, she broke the quiet. "Do you believe it? What Ava says about Bruno?" Joel didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched Ava through the window, sitting by the fire with Bruno, the two of them moving in perfect synchrony. "I've seen a lot of things in this world," Joel said finally, voice quiet. "Things that don't make sense to most folks. But the way that dog looks at her, the way she knows what he's thinking before he even moves it." "Yeah, Claire, I believe it." He looked at her, his face softening. "Don't be afraid of it. And it's a gift." Claire nodded, her heart heavy and hopeful at the same time. "But will it be enough to keep her safe?" Joel sighed. "That's up to us." The next morning, something strange happened. Ava woke up early, a nervous energy buzzing in the air. She led Bruno outside, wandering beyond the edge of the yard into the woods. Claire watched from the porch, anxiety prickling her skin, but trusted her daughter's instincts. After a while, Ava reappeared, her cheeks flushed, eyes shining. "I found a safe trail," she announced. "If we need to run again." Bruno showed me. Joel followed Ava out, inspecting the path she'd chosen. It snaked through a narrow gorge, barely visible to anyone who didn't know what to look for, and ended at a cold, fast-moving creek. He knelt down beside her, testing the soil, looking for signs of passage. "You sure about this?" Ava nodded. "Bruno knows. He remembers." Joel stood, putting a gentle hand on Ava's shoulder. "Good work, kid. You might have saved us all." Claire hugged Ava, relief flooding her. "I'm so proud of you." As the sun rose, Claire realized just how much Ava had changed. Her words came easier, her laughter more frequent. She'd begun to talk about Michael again, memories that had been locked away by grief, slowly drifting back into the light. Ava told Bruno stories about her dad, how he taught her to ride a bike, how he'd make up silly songs while grilling burgers in the backyard. Bruno listened, tail thumping in rhythm, as if absorbing every word. One afternoon, as rain pattered against the windows, Ava sat sketching by the fireplace. Bruno dozed at her feet, ears twitching as Ava's pencil darted across the page. "What are you drawing, sweetie?" Claire asked. Ava smiled, holding up the paper. It was a picture of Bruno and herself, standing together in front of the cabin, a ring of trees behind them like guardians. Above them, in a child's careful script, she had written, "Home is where you are." Claire hugged her, tears rising. "That's beautiful." Ava looked at her mother, hope shining in her eyes. "We'll be okay, right? As long as we're together?" Claire nodded, voice thick. "Yes, baby, as long as we're together." But as dusk fell and Joel made his rounds, the reality pressed in again. They were fugitives, hunted for a secret none of them fully understood. Voss's men would not stop. They had seen what Ava and Bruno could do, and they wanted it back at any cost. Still, for a few precious days, the cabin was a haven. Ava found her voice again. Bruno found a family, and the threads that had held them all together, grief, love, courage, were woven tighter than ever. Joel watched them from the shadows, hope flickering in his chest. For the first time in a long time, he let himself believe they just might have a chance. The forest around the cabin breathed with a deceptive calm, pines swaying in the wind, the air thick with birdsong and the scent of wood smoke. But inside, Claire felt the pressure mounting, an invisible hand tightening with every passing hour. Joel was the first to notice the signs. The motion sensors he'd set up began to ping with increasing frequency, sometimes in the middle of the night. Once he found a plastic water bottle, fresh, not faded, wedged under a bramble near the creek. Another day, tire tracks appeared just off the main fire road, the mud still tacky and fresh. Joel doubled his patrols, barely sleeping. Claire started keeping a loaded flashlight and Joel's old revolver by her bedside. But it was Ava and Bruno who seemed most alert. Ava would pause in the middle of a game, frown, then whisper, "Not that way, Bruno. The air feels wrong." The dog would freeze, hackles up, scanning the tree line with sharp eyes. One afternoon, Joel returned from a trip to the nearest store, a 2-hour drive away. His jaw clenched and face grim. Claire met him on the porch. "What is it?" Joel dropped his voice. "Someone's asking around town. 2 men in suits. Said they're from a security firm, looking for a lost dog. Showed Bruno's picture, even offered cash." Claire's stomach turned to ice. "They're getting closer, aren't they?" Joel nodded. "Yeah, we're running out of time." That evening, as dusk painted the sky purple and gold, Joel gathered everyone by the fireplace. The flames flickered shadows up the log walls, Bruno's eyes glowing as he lay with his head in Ava's lap. "There's something you both need to know," Joel said. And he pulled out a folded sheet of paper, an email he'd printed at the library that morning. "It's about Bruno, about Voss." Claire took the page, scanning the lines. Her face paled. "Project Empath?" Joel nodded. Bruno was never just a guard dog. He was bred and trained for something experimental. Voss's people implanted a chip that let them monitor his stress, his emotions, real-time data, like a living sensor. Ava listened, eyes wide, fingers tangled in Bruno's fur. Joel continued. "But the real twist? The project only worked if the dog formed a bond with a human partner. They tried soldiers first, then volunteers. Then they started recruiting kids. Sensitive kids, ones who tested high on empathy scales. The goal was to create pairs, one person, one dog, who could read danger before it happened." Claire's voice shook. "But why?" Joel's eyes hardened. "Weapons contracts, crowd control, security. They wanted an early warning system for unrest, for threats, for people who think different." Ava's voice was small but clear. "That's why Bruno found me. We're the same." Joel nodded, looking at her with quiet respect. "You and Bruno, you're not just a pair, Ava. You're the first one who ever made it work. That's why they want him back. And now they'll want you, too." Claire's heart hammered in her chest. "We have to go. Leave the country. Disappear. Something." Joel shook his head. "It's not that easy. I checked Bruno's tag last night. It has a GPS chip. I smashed it, but there could be backups, drones, satellites, and they have ways." Suddenly, Bruno tensed. His ears shot up, nose twitching. Ava pressed her hand to his back, her face going still. They're close, Ava whispered. He can feel it. We have to hide. Joel was on his feet in a second, grabbing his rifle and stuffing supplies into a backpack. Claire threw together food, medicine, a blanket. Ava stood by the door, Bruno pressed against her leg like a shadow. Joel, what do we do? Claire's voice cracked. He didn't hesitate. We run. I know a place. Old ranger station, even deeper in the woods. No roads, no power. If we move now, we'll stay ahead. They set out just as night fell, Joel leading the way, Ava and Bruno in the middle, Claire bringing up the rear. The forest closed around them, branches clawing at their clothes, roots rising up under their feet. Ava moved like she could see in the dark, changing course whenever Bruno hesitated. Twice, Joel stopped them short, listening to a distant whir that sounded like a drone. They crossed 2 creeks, waded through mud, and scrambled over fallen logs. At one point, Ava stopped, holding up her hand. "Oh, wait," she whispered, eyes squeezed shut. Bruno froze, then turned, pulling Ava to the left, away from the main trail. Minutes later, the beam of a flashlight swept over the path they'd just left behind. Voices, men, sharp and hurried, echoed through the trees. Joel motioned for silence, mouthing, "Good job." They waited, breathless, until the danger passed, then pushed deeper into the wilderness. They reached the old ranger station just before dawn, a mossy, long-abandoned building with cracked windows and a half-collapsed porch. Joel forced open the door, and they tumbled inside, exhausted but alive. Claire bandaged a cut on Ava's knee, while Joel blocked the door with a pile of debris. Bruno lay at Ava's side, his breathing rapid but strong. The morning light slanted through broken panes, painting dust motes gold. For the first time in hours, they let themselves rest. But safety was an illusion. Late that morning, as Joel checked the perimeter, he spotted something moving overhead, a drone, black and silent, circling high above the treetops. He ducked back inside, breath ragged. They found us. Somehow, they found us. Ava stood, Bruno already at her side. "We have to keep moving," she whispered. He says they'll never stop." Claire hugged her daughter tight, heart breaking at the fear in her voice. Joel's jaw set. "And there's one more thing. I have a friend, works with a group that helps people disappear. He can get us new IDs, maybe even help us cross the border, but we have to move fast. If we stay here, we're trapped." Ava turned to Bruno, kneeling so their eyes met. "Are you ready?" she whispered. Bruno licked her cheek, tail thumping despite the exhaustion in his bones. Joel shouldered his pack, voice gentle but urgent. "Time to go, kiddo. We stick together, no matter what." They slipped out the back, the forest swallowing them once again. Behind them, the drone circled. A searching, relentless. Ahead, the future was uncertain. A long road, danger at every bend. But in the shelter of the trees, with Ava and Bruno side by side, there was still hope. And hope, Claire thought, might be the only weapon they had left. The woods felt endless, ancient and indifferent, swallowing the little family whole as they pressed deeper with every hour. Joel moved at a relentless pace, eyes flicking to the canopy for drones, ears straining for the snap of twigs or distant voices. Ava followed close, Bruno at her side, the pair slipping through underbrush like they'd been born to it. The sun was just cresting the trees when Joel slowed, raising a hand for silence. They'd circled around an old dry creek bed, hoping to throw off anyone tracking their prints. Claire's legs ached, her breath hitching in the cool morning air, but she said nothing. She knew better than to complain now. Ava paused, listening. Bruno says, we're close to water. Safe water." Joel nodded, trusting Ava's instincts now more than his own. "Good. There's a river system, a couple miles north. If we follow it, we'll find a cave system I used to know. It should keep us hidden for a while." Bruno whined, ears twitching. Ava patted his flank, reassuring him. "You're okay. We'll rest soon." They trudged on, nerves stretched thin as tripwire. The ground underfoot turned damp, mud squelching between Claire's boots. For a moment it felt almost peaceful, the hush of water over stones, birds calling overhead. Joel motioned them to crouch as he checked the riverbank. "All clear?" They took a few precious minutes to drink and splash their faces. Claire caught Ava's hand, squeezing it tight. "You're so brave," she whispered. Ava grinned, just a flash, and pointed at Bruno. "He's braver." But the moment shattered as the sharp mechanical whine of an engine split the quiet. Joel's head snapped up. "Down." he barked, pulling everyone under the arching roots of an old fallen tree. A drone, sleek, black, and menacing, buzzed low overhead, a red light blinking beneath its belly. Bruno tensed, a growl building in his chest. Claire's heart pounded. How did they find us? Joel cursed under his breath. Must have picked up heat signatures. We've got to move. They doubled back, moving faster now, weaving between tangled trunks and low brush. Ava and Bruno led the way, finding hidden paths and animal trails. Joel paused now and then, wiping sweat from his brow, checking behind them for any sign of pursuit. But the forest wasn't empty. The faintest whiff of smoke drifted through the trees, almost lost in the sharp tang of pine. Ava froze. Something's burning. Bruno smells it. Joel sniffed the air. That's not a campfire. Stay close. They hurried on, but the smoke thickened, swirling around them. Suddenly, Joel stopped short, eyes wide. Up ahead, flames flickered in the undergrowth, climbing hungrily from tree to tree. Back! He yelled. A crashing sound behind them, shouts. Heavy boots stomping through brush. Men in tactical gear, their faces masked, emerged from the shadows, flanking the burning line. And one of them fired into the air. Stop! Hands in the air! You have something that doesn't belong to you! Joel shoved Claire and Ava behind him, raising his hands. Bruno snarled, hackles raised, standing between Ava and the nearest threat. The fire spread fast, fanned by sudden gusts of wind. Smoke burned their throats, stinging eyes. Joel's gaze darted to the right. There, a gap between the flames and the river. Go! Now! Joel shouted, swinging his pack like a shield as he rushed the nearest man, catching him off guard. Ava grabbed Claire's hand, Bruno barking furiously, and darted through the smoke. Hot embers sizzled against their skin, heat pressing in from all sides. Someone grabbed Claire's arm, a rough hand, yanking her back. She lashed out with the flashlight, connecting with bone. The man howled, letting go, and she stumbled free. Joel tackled another man, fighting like a cornered animal. Run! He yelled, blood running down his face. Ava led Bruno toward the river, barely able to see for the smoke. This way! She called, voice ragged. They reached the water's edge, just as the fire leapt across the trail behind them, cutting off the pursuers. Bruno waded in first, swimming powerfully despite his wounds. Ava followed, pulling Claire by the hand. The current was strong and icy, pulling at their legs, but the forest they pressed forward, fighting for every step. Bullets snapped through the trees above, wild and desperate. Claire stumbled, lungs burning, but Ava gripped her tightly. Keep going, Mom. Bruno's ahead. We're almost there. Somewhere downstream, the river bent and narrowed, carving through a low bank of shale and roots. Bruno climbed out first, shaking water from his coat, then turned back, barking encouragement. Ava scrambled after him, hauling Claire up the muddy slope. Behind them, the fire raged, thick smoke blotting out the sky. The men's shouts faded into chaos as the flames boxed them in. They collapsed in a tangle at the top of the bank, coughing and gasping for air. Joel appeared moments later, his shirt scorched, hair singed, but alive. He threw his arms around Ava and Claire, then checked Bruno's wounds, hands gentle despite their trembling. Ava hugged Bruno's neck, burying her face in his fur. You did it! You saved us again! Bruno whimpered, licking Ava's face, his body shaking with exhaustion. A fresh wound bled at his flank, a deep, ugly cut from a falling branch or shrapnel. Joel wrapped the injury with his bandana, eyes grim. We need to keep moving, but he can't go much farther. Claire touched Ava's shoulder, her voice gentle but urgent. Honey, can you feel if he's okay? Oh, Ava closed her eyes, laying her hand over Bruno's wound. She stayed like that for a long moment, breathing in sync with him. Finally, she opened her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. He's tired. Her hurting. But he says we're close. He says we can't stop now. Joel nodded, understanding the urgency. There's a cave system not far from here. We can hide out, tend to his wounds, regroup. Then, when night falls, we'll move again. Twilight settled over the ravaged woods as they stumbled into the mouth of a dark, cool cave. Joel lit a small fire, using wet wood to keep the smoke down. Claire washed Bruno's wounds as best she could, while Ava whispered to him, singing little songs and telling stories about her dad. Each word, a lifeline. Bruno pressed against her, eyes closing as Ava's voice soothed his pain. Outside, the forest smoldered, helicopters thumped in the distance, and the men from Voss spread out, searching the blackened earth for any trace of their prey. But in that cave, for a brief, precious moment. They were safe, survivors, bound together by love and the stubborn hope that tomorrow might bring something better. Ava curled up with Bruno, whispering as she drifted towards sleep, "He says we're close, Mom. So close." Claire watched her daughter and the battered shepherd, wonder and fear mingling in her heart. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And somewhere, deep in the dark, Bruno's eyes opened, alert, unwavering, guarding the only family he had ever known. Night in the cave was restless. Claire dozed fitfully, jolting awake at every echo from the forest, every dream of fire and chase. Joel stayed alert at the cave mouth, rifle across his lap, scanning the woods for any movement, every snap of a twig raising the hair on his neck. Ava slept with her hand on Bruno's side, their breathing in sync. When she finally woke, it was to Bruno, nudging her gently, eyes locked with hers, the barest hint of a whimper trembling in his throat. "He says it's time," Ava whispered, sitting up. Joel turned from his post, voice low. "They've fanned out. I saw more men, night vision, radios, the works, but they're not rushing. It feels like they're waiting for something." Claire's eyes widened. "What if they're hurting us? Forcing us somewhere?" Joel's face hardened. Wouldn't put it past Voss. Suddenly, Ava shivered. "They want us to run, but they want Bruno and me." Bruno pressed against her, a low growl rolling from deep in his chest. As dawn broke, Joel led the way from the cave, sticking to the shadows, taking some of the most difficult ground. Ava and Bruno followed, Claire close behind, every sense on edge. They trekked for hours, ducking under fallen trees, wading through brambles, skirting clearings. The air was thick, every bird call or rustle of leaves a threat. Ava didn't complain. She only whispered to Bruno, their silent language now their greatest shield. Around midday, they hit a dead end, an old rusted fence running along the top of a rocky outcrop. Joel scouted ahead, only to return with a grim set to his jaw. "Blockade? They've sealed every path. Only way out is the low road, straight through the valley." Ava looked to Bruno, fear flickering across her face. Bruno licked her hand, then stared out into the valley, as if weighing the danger. Claire squeezed Joel's arm. "If it's a trap—" "It's a trap," Joel said, no illusions left. "But we don't have a choice." As they crept into the valley, the woods grew quiet. No birds, no wind, just the hush before disaster. They slipped between boulders, Ava and Bruno moving as one, Claire's heartbeat thundering in her chest. Suddenly, a voice boomed across the valley, cold and mechanical. "Stop right there. I want to see all of you." From behind a cluster of rocks, a group of men stepped into view, their rifles raised. And behind them, dressed in a black tactical suit, was Carter Voss himself. He was taller than Claire expected, lean, his hair peppered gray. His eyes, cold and calculating, swept over the group and settled on Bruno, and then on Ava. "Miss Matthews," Voss called out, a polite chill in his tone. "You've been quite the challenge. But this ends here." Joel stepped forward, shielding Claire and Ava with his body. "You're not taking them?" Voss gave a thin smile. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I want what's mine, my company's property. Give me the dog, and you all go free." Bruno stood rigid, lips peeled back in a snarl, body low and tense. Ava put a hand on his back, shaking her head. "He's not yours. He never was." Voss's smile vanished. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl. That dog is the result of millions in research, and you," he gestured to Ava, "are the proof that it works." Claire stepped forward, voice trembling but fierce. "She's a child, and you use children. For what? Weapons?" Voss's face hardened. "For security, for peace. The world is dangerous, Miss Matthews. Sometimes you need a deterrent." Joel laughed, a hard, bitter sound. "You mean control? That's what this is really about." Voss gestured, and 2 men advanced. "Enough talk." Joel drew his weapon, leveling it at the nearest guard. "Back off." Chaos exploded in an instant. Bruno lunged, knocking one guard to the ground. Joel swung his rifle, striking another across the face. Claire pulled Ava behind a rock, bullets tearing the air. Bruno moved with a kind of desperate fury. He was fast, but the wound in his side slowed him. Still, he snapped at the guards, forcing them to retreat. Joel fought beside him, tackling a man twice his size, both of them tumbling into the dust. Voss shouted orders, but in the confusion, Ava saw her chance. "Mom, this way!" she yelled, dragging Claire along the rocky edge. Bruno spun, seeing Ava in danger, and broke from the melee, blood staining his coat. Joel landed a solid punch, buying them seconds. He shouted, "Run! I'll hold them!" Bruno limped to Ava's side, growling at the advancing men. Claire grabbed a fallen rifle, pointing it at Voss, her hands shaking. "Let us go!" she screamed. Voss stared at her, unmoved. "I gave you a chance. Now I'll take what's mine." He raised a small device, pressing a button. Instantly, a sharp yelp tore from Bruno. He staggered, legs buckling. Ava screamed, dropping to her knees. "Bruno, no!" Voss's men closed in, grabbing Ava. Claire tried to fight, but two men pulled her back, forcing her to the ground. Joel struggled in the dirt, a guard pinning him with a knee to his back. He looked up, rage and terror in his eyes. Ava sobbed, cradling Bruno's head. Don't hurt him! I'll do whatever you want, just stop!" Voss approached, the remote in his hand, cool as a surgeon. "There, see? Even heroes have limits. You can't win, Ava. The world isn't made for people like you. It's made for people like me." But as he knelt, Bruno's eyes flashed, defiant, wild. With the last of his strength, he lunged, teeth snapping. He caught Voss's arm, tearing the remote free. Voss cursed, reeling back. Ava seized the moment, rolling away, freeing herself from the guard's grip. Joel twisted, slamming his head into his captor's nose. Claire kicked out, catching another in the knee. Suddenly, the valley erupted in noise. Sirens, the thunder of engines. Police vehicles burst through the trees, lights flashing. Voss's men scattered, dropping their weapons. One officer shouted into a loudspeaker, "Drop your weapons, hands where we can see them." Joel staggered up, grabbing Ava and Claire, pulling them behind a squad car. Bruno limped after them, bleeding but refusing to fall. Voss was cuffed and dragged away, shouting protests. Claire clung to Ava, tears streaming down her face. Bruno collapsed beside Ava, chest heaving, blood soaking into the grass. Ava wrapped her arms around his neck, sobbing into his fur. "You did it. You kept your promise." Joel knelt beside them, a hand on Ava's shoulder. "You're safe now, kiddo. You both are." The police cleared the area, paramedics rushing in. Claire held Ava close, Bruno's head resting in her lap, his eyes fixed on her, unwavering to the end. And for the first time in a long time, the nightmare ended, not in fire or pain, but in love, in the unbreakable bond between a girl and her dog. A hush fell over the valley, broken only by the static crackle of police radios and the faint rustle of wind through scorched grass. Blue and red lights flickered, reflecting in pools of blood and water. Officers moved with quick, practiced steps, securing weapons, handcuffing the last of Voss's men. But for Ava, time seemed to slow. She knelt on the damp ground, Bruno's big head heavy in her lap. Blood seeped from his wounds, staining Ava's jeans and the grass beneath them. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. Around them, the world faded. The shouting, the sirens, even the gentle hand Claire placed on her daughter's back. All Ava could see, all she could feel, was Bruno. She stroked his ears, voice shaking. "You're okay. Please, Bruno, please stay with me." Bruno's tail thumped, weak but steady. He gazed at Ava with a depth only the two of them could understand, a kind of promise, old and unbreakable. Joel dropped to his knees beside them, battered and bruised, his face streaked with sweat and ash. He pressed a hand to Bruno's side, feeling the warmth ebbing away. "Come on, big guy. You held on this long." Claire watched, helpless, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her face. Medics rushed over, kneeling with gauze and bandages, but Joel shook his head. "You're too late." Ava pressed her forehead to Bruno's. "You kept your promise. You never left me." The shepherd closed his eyes, shuddering as Ava whispered, her words barely more than breath. "It's okay, Bruno. You can rest now." "I'll be okay. I promise." For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then Bruno let out a final sigh, his body relaxing, head heavy in Ava's arms. The world seemed to tilt, then right itself. A sob tore from Ava's chest, raw and deep, as she clung to Bruno, her face buried in his fur. Joel looked away, jaw clenched tight. Claire knelt beside her daughter, wrapping her arms around both child and dog, rocking them as if she could hold the moment back, could hold all the pain in the world at bay. The authorities worked quickly. Police officers took statements from Claire and Joel, gentle and respectful. Paramedics checked Ava for shock, wrapping her in a blanket, but she hardly noticed. The lead detective, a kind-faced woman named Sanchez, knelt beside Ava, voice soft. Your friend was very brave. So are you. Ava nodded, but her voice was gone. She only hugged Bruno tighter. Joel led Claire a few steps away, voice quiet. They're going to ask questions. About Voss, about Bruno, about everything. We stick to the truth. No talk about the experiments, or what Ava can do. Not unless we have to. Claire nodded, wiping her cheeks. What'll happen to Voss? Joel glanced at the handcuffed man being led away. He'll be charged. They've been wanting to pin something on him for years. With luck, this time it'll stick. As the sun climbed higher, a tow truck and more patrol cars arrived. The scene turned orderly, almost routine, as evidence was collected and witnesses escorted away. But for Ava, the world was still. The only thing that mattered was Bruno. A while later, a paramedic crouched beside Ava, her voice gentle. We can take him now, sweetheart. Give him a proper burial. Would you like to come? Ava shook her head, holding Bruno a little longer. Just a minute. Joel put a hand on Ava's shoulder. He'd want you to be strong, kid. He was proud of you. I know it. Ava looked up at him, her eyes red but fierce. I know. I'll never forget him. Ever. They helped her to her feet. Joel lifted Bruno, cradling the shepherd's heavy body in his arms as gently as a child. They walked together, Ava, Claire, Joel, and a quiet line of police, into the woods. At a small, sun-dappled clearing, they dug a grave beneath a spreading oak. Ava placed her hand on Bruno's fur one last time, whispering words no one else could hear. The adults bowed their heads. Joel said a few words about loyalty, courage, and second chances. Claire hugged Ava tight, both of them crying softly as Bruno was lowered into the earth. Ava laid one of her drawings, a picture of Bruno and her beneath the trees, on his grave. She pressed her hand to the dirt, closing her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Back at the patrol cars, Detective Sanchez handed Joel a battered smartwatch. The location ping had brought them just in time. Joel clipped it to his belt, a faint smile flickering at the thought that even technology had sided with them in the end. Later, at the hospital, Claire and Ava were checked over. The bruises, smoke inhalation, exhaustion. Joel sat with them, refusing treatment until Ava had been cleared. The staff were kind, their questions gentle, but Claire could feel the scrutiny behind every glance. She held Ava's hand, never letting go. Ava barely spoke. Her gaze was distant, drifting to the empty spot at the end of her hospital bed where Bruno would have lain. Claire tried to find words, but nothing felt right. Finally, she just squeezed her daughter's hand. Night fell. Joel sat at the window, lost in his own thoughts. The world outside was quiet now, the chaos finally behind them. Ava slept fitfully, dreaming of running through the woods, Bruno always at her side, whole and happy. When she woke, tears slipped down her cheeks, but for the first time, she let them fall. Claire brushed her hair back, voice soft. He loved you, Ava. He knew you loved him. Ava nodded, wiping her face. I know, Mom. I know. In the days that followed, Joel met with authorities, answering questions, spinning the story just enough to keep Ava safe. News spread about Voss's arrest, about the dog who saved a family. There was talk of medals, of interviews. But Claire declined them all. All they wanted was peace. One morning, a card arrived at the hospital. A simple, handwritten note from Detective Sanchez. Thank you for reminding us what bravery looks like. If you ever need help, you know where to find me. Joel smiled, tucking the card into his wallet. Ava looked at the empty spot beside her, sadness in her eyes, but also a quiet strength. Bruno was gone, but his promise remained, a silent vow to keep living, keep loving, no matter the pain. And as sunlight spilled across the room, Ava whispered, I'll never let you down. Bruno? Never. Weeks drifted by, each sunrise melding a bit of the grief that had settled over Claire and Ava's lives. The hospital stay was short, just long enough for the bruises to fade and for the nightmares to become less frequent. When Claire and Ava finally returned home, the little house on the edge of town looked the same. But everything felt different. The yard was overgrown, the porch creaked, and the kitchen clock still ticked too loudly. But the silence that had haunted every room now felt gentler, less oppressive. Ava's transformation was unmistakable. She woke every morning without prodding, her eyes clear. She'd begun to talk again. About school, about her dad, about Bruno. It wasn't just words, it was laughter, too. Unsteady at first, but real. She even told Joel, one afternoon, as he helped fix a loose board on the porch, "Bruno would have hated how squeaky this is." The memory, once too painful, now brought a smile. Joel came by every few days, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to sit with Ava on the back steps. He was quieter these days, a lingering sadness in his eyes, but when he looked at Ava, there was pride and a tenderness she had never seen before. One Saturday morning, Joel arrived with a box tucked under his arm, grinning for the first time in weeks. "Got a surprise for you, kid," he said, setting it on the porch. Ava eyed it warily. "Is it a snake?" Joel laughed. "Better. Open it." Inside, blinking in the sunlight, was a rescue puppy, a black and tan shepherd with wide, nervous eyes and paws too big for his body. Ava's breath caught, tears springing to her eyes. But this time they were happy ones. Claire knelt beside her. "He needs a name." Ava scooped up the puppy, hugging him close. "Valor," she whispered. "His name is Valor." The puppy squirmed, then settled, licking her cheek. Joel nodded, approving. "He's got Bruno's eyes, doesn't he?" Ava nodded, smiling through tears. "Yeah, he really does." Life didn't snap back to normal. It shifted into something new. And Ava still dreamed of Bruno, but now those dreams were of running and playing, not of fear and fire. Some mornings she'd wake up and swear she could hear him padding down the hallway, his collar jingling. On those days, she'd sit on the porch with Valor and tell him stories about his big brother, how Bruno had been brave and gentle, and always knew when she was scared. Valor listened, nipping at her shoelaces and tumbling in the grass, his clumsy affection a balm to Ava's heart. Claire found herself healing too. She joined a support group for parents, started baking again, and even let herself remember Michael without collapsing. One afternoon, as she watched Ava teaching Valor to fetch, Claire realized she was smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in years. Joel became family, their steady rock. He fixed the old truck, helped build a new fence, and sometimes just listened as Ava talked, never once interrupting. When he mentioned taking Valor to obedience school, Ava grinned. "We'll teach him ourselves, right, Joel?" He nodded. "With you in charge, kid. He'll be the smartest dog in town." Word about Bruno and Ava spread farther than they'd ever imagined. The local paper ran a story. German Shepherd saves family, exposes secret project. There were offers for TV interviews, awards, even book deals. Claire declined them all, though she let Ava write a letter to Detective Sanchez, thanking her for her kindness and promising to visit the police station soon. Instead, Claire focused her energy elsewhere. She and Ava volunteered at the local animal shelter, helping dogs who'd never had a chance at a family. Joel, who had once struggled in silence with his own scars from the military, started speaking at veterans groups, sharing Bruno's story and encouraging others to seek help. Sometimes, families with children would come to the shelter, and Ava would sit with the dogs, whispering to them, her quiet empathy a bridge between wounded souls. "You're not broken," she'd tell them. "You're just waiting to be found." The staff soon noticed that dogs Ava worked with were adopted faster, calmer, more trusting. Late one afternoon, Claire watched Ava and Valor racing through the backyard, laughter ringing out, the puppy bounding after her with wild, joyful abandon. Claire's heart swelled with gratitude for the dog who'd saved them, for the people who hadn't given up, for the resilience that had carried them through the storm. She sat down at her laptop and began to write. Sometimes, the ones they throw away are the ones who end up saving us all. She added a note at the bottom. If you were moved by our story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope. And if you can, support your local rescue shelters and organizations that help veterans heal. Together, we can make the world a kinder place for people and for dogs. That night, Ava curled up with Valor at the foot of her bed. As sleep took her, she whispered, "Thank you, Bruno. I'll never forget you. I promise." And somewhere in her dreams, a strong shepherd ran beside her, the darkness behind them, the world ahead filled with light,